Scored cruel for Fiance dowry. Last entry reads, killed in a nighttime encounter with... Also, who is this Red Nose? Guild Hunter, could you help me check the Supreme Hall?
¿Dónde es que me apareció lo de todos los edificios? Aquí, campamento. No puedo subirla. No puedo subirla. No puedo subirla porque me hace falta un viaje. Vasija de almas. No puedo subirla. No puedo subirla. Subirla. Un poco. Un poco. Pone aquí. El computador. ¿Cómo era la cosa?
Lose MMR depending on how you play. It doesn't really place you in like completely straightforward and don't need much the blue section of this branch right here. From there, you're gonna jump toward the blue section of the shield.
No, pero no me dejó hacer eso. Tema. No me caí.
Shield and then jump toward the blue.
No. ¿Cómo me cuesta, por Dios? No, casi.
Section underneath the shield, and then get on top of this branch right here. From there, you're gonna jump toward the blue section of the shield, and then jump toward the blue section of the helmet. Once you're standing on top of the statue, face the log.
Ay, fuck.
Bowing was how believers once sought divine protection. I wonder if it still works.
Aceptada el dentoide perpejo.
Hey, big guild hunter! Why are you bowing to that big statue? Twig is curious. Oh, so that statue is Velvar. Do you feel anything now? Shiny guild hunter, can you... Oh right, you just got... I wish we hadn't fought with Sokya. He would know. If I go ask him myself, that blind bird won't... Kind-hearted guild hunter, please...
I thought these woodlings weren't too bright. They keep their clan's secrets under lock and key. If I don't tell these blockheads, they'll eventually come... Then again, you aren't much smarter than these woodlings. You barely even talk. You probably need visual aids if you're gonna get your story through. Tell you what, since you're always running around Hallowgrove anyway, why not look for something more meaningful while you're at it?
Oh, botín legendario. Ya. ¿Dónde estoy? Aquí. Necesito ir acá. Aquí, pero bueno. Loot es loot. Más del que pensé que me lo quitó. Opa, ¿qué fue eso? No sé de movimiento.
The barrier has been lifted. Go face the mist lord. Hurry up and hang it. She's doing junk.
Al contrario. Está vivo.
Hell.
Oh shit. Oh my god. Oh my god. Parece. Mm. Ah, no, y ahora me quieren pelear a mí. Curas, no tengo curas. Versus uno no se vale. Tengo un objeto. Ah, Otro intento contra uno de estos jefes. Yo creo que la puerta no se abre hasta dentro de un tiempo. Abierto.
The barrier has been lifted. Go face the mist. Quit standing around and ring the charm. It's all up to you now.
Pues de paja gigantes.
Here's your reward.
Ah. Necesito una de estas. Creo que está planeando atacarme. Ah, todavía me persigue. Así es.
Hail.
Vamos pues, amigo. My God. Me olvida que tengo un escudo. Creo que este también necesitaba.
Hail.
Hey, don't say I didn't warn you. Once again, the nest is coming.
No tengo más curaciones. Consigo estas llaves. Minutos. Estoy. Tengo que ir para acá. No encontré dónde está. No, aquí. No, aquí.
Final warning. If you want to live, find an extraction point. Follow the butterflies all the way. Even you should be able to manage that.
What? ¿Cómo subo allí?
Too late. Now nobody's getting out alive.
Y escapé.
Before you even got back, I'd already flown out. Those missing mist chasers most... Right now, a bunch... Head out to Halogram.
Aretes que ni se ven. Bendito juego está más lleno de microtransacciones. Oh, me quedan 2 cuernos. 1000. A ver, ¿qué vendes? Tienda premium, tienda de objetos tácticos, tienda secreta. ¿Pues ¿cuánto vale? 4000. Sí, no sé por qué perdí. Lo- pues.
large statue at the end of the camp, and a prompt will appear asking you to bow to it. I've already completed this, and sadly I didn't record it the first time I did it, but once you do get up here, you will see the prompt. This is going to initiate a short series of around 2 to 3 quests. They're pretty straightforward and don't need much explanation. Once you've completed all of them, you'll be rewarded with this bell cosmetic. Path of Glory, which is this game's rank system, can reward you with a blue and a purple combat bag for free. I say for free because a lot of new players assume that enabling Path of Glory means they'll be only placed against other players who are sweating extremely hard in ranked, but that isn't how it works. Enabling Path of Glory simply means that the game will judge your performance and you'll either gain or lose MMR depending on how you play. It doesn't really place you in like completely separate ranked queues or guarantee that you'll only face other ranked players. You'll still encounter unranked players, bad players, good players, and everything in between. So realistically, there's very little reason to keep Path of Glory turned off. Mistfall Hunter doesn't seem to have a traditional skill-based matchmaking, but it does appear to have a fairly noticeable gear-based matchmaking system. This isn't just because normal, chaos, and cataclysm are separated. Even within those difficulties, there seems to be some degree of matchmaking based on the quality of the equipment you bring in. More specifically, I think it's the value. I noticed this most clearly in normal difficulty. Now, I'll say that this isn't official information, by the way, but throughout my playtime, the pattern has been pretty noticeable. Whenever I entered normal with a full blue gear set from head to toe, almost every player I encountered was also wearing the same full blue gear. Assuming this is indeed how the system works, you can actually leverage this to your advantage. If you're looking specifically to PvP and collect player gear, bring a full set of blues, and most players you encounter, they'll be wearing the same blue gear, making their loot more valuable to you. If you're trying to focus on PvE, complete tasks, or do treasure chest runs, consider just bringing weaker equipment so you don't encounter as many fully kitted out opponents. Of course, weaker equipment will also make Mist Lords and elite enemies way more difficult though, so take that into account. Personally, I normally just equip the strongest gear available to me and don't pay too much attention to it, but yeah, do keep in mind that gear-based matchmaking is something you can potentially use to your advantage. Since we're talking about gear and difficulty, one tip I wish I knew when I started playing Mistfall Hunter is that you should play on the highest difficulty you can reasonably handle when you're trying to make money or obtain better gear. You can enter Chaos difficulty with a set of green equipment. For my first day or so, I thought you needed like blue or even purple gear to enter Chaos, but no, you really don't. You just need your equipped gear to cross 800 gold in total value, which you can see the current equipment value right here inside the equipment hub, directly above your gear set. Once you reach the required value, you can then queue for Chaos. Chaos seems to have around triple the amount of purples, legendaries, and holies compared to normal. I mean, of course, I'm just like throwing a number out there. It's not exactly triple, but you do get way more purples, legendaries, and holies. If you suffer from gear fear, remember, you can just enter with an approximately 800 gold green set and then just safe pocket the most valuable items you find. If you loot a few epics and maybe one legendary or like one holy, then you've likely already covered the cost of your original equipment. Even if another player kills you and you lose everything outside of your safe pocket, you can then just go ahead and sell the protected items and oftentimes just buy the same loadout again without losing anything. So try to play the hardest difficulties whenever you're capable of doing so. They're well worth your time. Speaking of gold and item value are king in Mistfall Hunter. Some extraction shooters' currency can't buy you everything you need. In Arc Raiders, for example, you can't just use coins to obtain a fully kitted loadout whenever you want. Mistfall Hunter is different though. Gold can buy weapons of any rarity, armor, gems, and basically every material you'll ever need. The main exceptions, or basically only exceptions, are certain holy materials used for camp upgrades, some cosmetics, and a few other specific items. Because of this, choosing loot based on its value is oftentimes more important than target farming the exact item you need. For example, imagine a chest drops 2 items. One is a blue material you need for a camp upgrade, while the other is a purple item worth 500 gold, for example. In most situations, you should just go ahead and take the purple item. You can then just return to camp, sell it for the 500 gold, and then go on the auction house and just buy the blue material for for a cheaper price, and you're gonna have some gold left over. So pick value over the target item you're looking for. Another gold-related mistake I made, and one you don't have to make, is paying to switch the class of an existing character. I probably wasted somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 gold switching classes before realizing that it was completely unnecessary. Instead, you can just simply create a new character without actually starting over. Your quests remain the same, your warehouse is shared, your auction house listings are shared, and you keep all your gold. Basically, everything is gonna carry over from character to character. The only thing that changes are your character's appearance, class, and the level. But then here comes another tip. If you just upgrade the Gildan Blood pool to level 4, you can just pay this NPC 3,600 gold to instantly boost the new character to max level. That means you can create a full roster containing every class in the game and pay 3,600 gold to max out each one. In the grand scheme of things, that really isn't much gold, by the way. It looks like a lot at first, but it kind of isn't. Speaking of new characters, I recommend testing every class at your own pace, even if you already have one main class that you absolutely love. I've played multiple games with every class, and the amount of general game knowledge I gained from those experiments has helped me a lot. I'm personally a Black Arrow main, but yeah, testing the classes teaches you their strengths, weaknesses, and counters. It also makes fights much less intimidating because you begin to understand exactly what the enemy can and can't do against you. Since swapping between your characters has no real downside or delay, you're gonna be free to experiment. Testing is extremely important, and the developers clearly knew that because Mistfall Hunter gives us some surprisingly useful tools in Training Grounds. You probably already know that Training Grounds exist, but what you may not know is that the host can spawn bots to practice against. You can create a public Training Grounds lobby, mark it as private so nobody else joins, and spawn the same types of bots you'll occasionally encounter in actual matches. You can spawn multiple bots from different classes, increase their difficulty, give them higher quality gear, and practice fighting them with your chosen class. You can also freeze the bots and restore your character's health and healing items whenever necessary. And by the way, these lobbies also contain chests filled with different equipment, items, and potions, allowing you to freely experiment with different setups. Now, I mentioned that you'll sometimes encounter bots during actual matches. You'll notice this most frequently when you first start playing Mistfall Hunter. Up until around level 4 or 5, you'll mostly be playing against bots disguised as regular players. There are 3 main ways to tell bots and real players apart. The first and probably the biggest giveaway is their names. Bots can have names that are longer than the limit for real players. A name like this guy, Do Phantom E the One, for example, contains 17 characters, while real player names are actually capped at 15. You can also identify bots by their movements. I mean, you will get better at recognizing it over time, but bots generally move in very straight lines. They run directly forward or direct backward or strafe just side to side, and they rarely move diagonally or even use movement mechanics intelligently. The third giveaway is how strongly they focus on PvE enemies. Sometimes you can attack a bot multiple times before they even switch their aggro and finally switch their attention to you. Generally speaking, bots are just free kills, and they normally carry some decent loot as well. So it's also worth noting that I've personally never encountered one bot mixed in a lobby of real players. I could be wrong on this, and I can't fully confirm that this is always the case, but in my experience, if I identify one bot, that usually means the remaining players on this match are also bots as well. Those opening levels, though, aren't the only time you'll encounter bot lobbies. Mistfall Hunter appears to have a pity system that can place you against bots after you lose several games in a row, presumably to try to help you get back on your feet. I'm still investigating exactly how this system works for a separate video, so I'm not going to go too much into detail here, but the short version is that losing repeatedly can occasionally trigger another bot match.
Standing around and ring the charm.
Now let's return to some camp-related tips. You may have noticed that the shop NPC sells 2 different sets of potions, and you probably didn't think much of it. Personally, I didn't either. The potions are identical, but there is a catch. Their prices are different. The ones on the left only cost 12 gold apiece, while the ones on the right cost 28 gold, more than twice the price. The difference here is that you can only purchase a limited number of cheaper potions on the left side every time the shop refreshes, which happens once every 30 minutes. The idea is that between runs you can just return to the shop, purchase the discounted snacks before buying any of the more expensive potions. The merchant also gives away certain tactical items free. The game does tell you about these, but what I originally didn't realize is that the free items also refresh alongside the shop. I initially thought these free giveaways were like a daily reward, but they're not. They're like every 30 or 45 minutes. I'm not exactly sure what the time is. Anytime you have the opportunity, just visit the shop and purchase. Giveaways were like a daily reward, but they're not. They're like every 30 or 45 minutes. I'm not exactly sure what the time is. Anytime you have the opportunity. I initially thought these free giveaways were like a free. The game does tell you about these, but what I originally didn't realize is that the free items also refresh alongside the shop. I initially thought these free giveaways were like a daily reward, but they're not. They're like every 30 or 45 minutes. I'm not exactly sure what the time is. Anytime you have the opportunity, just visit the shop and purchase the discounted potions. Even if you don't immediately need them, just store them in your warehouse and you'll almost certainly need them eventually. On a similar note, the merchant you encountered during matches also sells potions for less than the 28 gold price in the regular shop, so do keep that in mind. Now, let's talk about combat bags. These can be a bit of a pain to obtain, but there are currently 3 main methods available. Depending on when you're watching this video, the developers may have added new methods. But the first method is Path of Glory, which rewards the blue and purple combat bags I mentioned earlier. These are limited seasonal rewards, however, they aren't properly farmable. The second method is the Destiny Map Store. This appears to reset weekly, and the current rewards include 1 blue and 2 green combat bags. Those rewards could potentially change with future resets. Now, the properly repeatable method though is the scavenger squads. Any journey you send your squad on can reward you with combat bags of varying quality. These journeys of course take time, but some of them can reward multiple green, blue, and even purple bags. I mean, just look at this. You'll need to pay the upfront cost of sending the squad, but these journeys generally return way more value than you invest, so don't really overthink it. Keep your scavenger squads active as much as possible. Now, for a quick tip involving the current limited time event. At the time of this recording, this event will remain active for another 17 days. Future events may use a similar system, so this could still be relevant later. During the Golden Cipher event, you occasionally find cipher items that can be returned to the NPCs at camp for rewards. However, you shouldn't give every cipher to whichever NPC happens to be closest. Each cipher actually has a specific NPC who will be especially happy to receive it. Giving a cipher to the correct NPC can provide better rewards, including epic materials, additional gold, and other bonuses. This is at least what I've come across so far. Now let's go ahead and talk about safe pockets. Mistfall Hunter has 2 different protected storage systems, the keychains and the regular safe pockets known as Pip's pouches. Pip's pouches allow you to store almost anything, including weapons and materials, as long as the item doesn't exceed the pouch's value threshold. There are 3 different pouch rarities. There's crude, fine, and rare. The different pouches don't just have different storage capacities. The rarer the pouch is, the more expensive items you can place inside it. With a crude pouch, for example, you wouldn't be able to safe pocket a holy item worth 5,000 gold. With a rare pouch, however, you could. Then you have the keychains, which are specifically used to store keys. I know, surprising. Keys inside your keychains aren't dropped when you die either. However, when you first find a key during your run, you may need to successfully extract it before you're allowed to insert it into the keychain. That brings us to the keys themselves. Keys in Mistfall Hunters can be used multiple times. You can check how many uses remain by looking at the wear progression bar at the bottom of the keys tooltip. You also notice keys being described as fine, worn, damaged, and so on. A fine key, for example, may be usable 10 times. A worn key might only have 6 uses remaining, while a damaged key might only be usable twice. Because of this, it can be worth purchasing relatively cheap fine keys from the auction house, and if you use them efficiently, you likely earn significantly more from the locked rooms than you even paid for the key. Now, both keychains and Pip's pouches come from a slightly strange system called vouchers. Vouchers temporarily unlock the associated item for a specific amount of time. For example, Pip's Fine Pouch voucher may give you access to the Fine Safe pouch for 4 days. During that period, the pouch can be used at any time on any character. If you have multiple vouchers, don't just immediately activate them all at once. Although their timers stack, activating multiple pouch rarities simultaneously can actually waste time. If your rare pouch and fine pouch are both active, you'll naturally just want to use the rare pouch and ignore the weaker one. Instead, just hold on to your unused vouchers and wait until your currently active pouch expires. And then you can then go ahead and activate the next voucher. This just prevents different pouch rarities from unnecessarily overlapping. Now, what should you do with all these materials you find? Because almost everything can be purchased, you can simplify inventory management by selling materials you're unsure about. Because almost everything can be purchased, you can simplify inventory management by selling materials you're unsure about and buying them back whenever you actually need them. This isn't perfectly efficient. Every time you list something on the auction house, you'll lose a little bit of gold to fees. However, in my opinion, that's a small price to pay for never having to worry about which random materials you may or may not need several hours or days or weeks later. If you want to min-max every last piece of gold, you'll need to learn which materials should be kept. But if you just want to simplify your life, just sell everything you don't currently need and you can purchase it again in the future if you need it. Tactical items are also extremely important in Mistfall Hunter, but they're easy to overlook when you're already trying to learn so many other systems. Certain classes will naturally benefit more from specific tactical items, so keep that in mind. On my Black Arrow, for example, I find throwable keys to be extremely useful for both offensive and defensive play. They can prevent enemies from kiting me or escaping through doors, and if I'm the one trying to escape, I can use one to instantly lock the door behind me. If tactical items feel like too much to manage, start by just bringing one type of tactical item into every match. And then you can just make a conscious effort to use that one item in different situations. And once you develop the habit, tactical items will become much easier to incorporate naturally into your gameplay. Now, this one's going to be a slightly weird tip, but consider fighting every enemy player who's using the same class as you. This isn't an ego thing. Players using your class are likely to have equipment and affixes specifically designed for your class. That means their loot will normally be much more valuable to you than equipment taken from a completely different class. Mirror matchups can also teach you a lot. For example, I normally built my Black Arrow around range damage, and I eventually fought this one Black Arrow whose equipment was designed around increasing dot duration. I took his equipment, I tested it myself, and I really enjoyed the results. That fight introduced me to a build I may not have otherwise considered. When someone using your class outplays you, you can also learn more from what they did. It's much easier to recognize the decisions, abilities, and mistakes involved when you already understand how their class works. I should also point out that affixes are extremely important. In many situations, you'll be better off using a lower rarity item with the correct affix than a higher rarity item with the wrong one. This becomes especially important when an affix reaches the threshold that unlocks an additional effect. Eloquence on the Seer and Sorcerer, for example, increases your casting speed. Once you do reach a particular threshold, though, I think it's like level 4, level 5, smaller attacks will no longer interrupt your cast, which can be a complete game changer when you're using abilities with longer cast times. Don't enter matches just wearing a collection of higher rarity items with completely random affixes. You may look powerful based on your equipment rarity, but in reality, you could be significantly weaker than someone using a properly synergized set. Now imagine you've entered a match with one specific gold. What should you prioritize then? If you don't have a task or a target item in mind, your main objective will probably be to leave with as much valuable loot as possible. First, prioritize these purple tagged enemies whenever you encounter them. They're normally a relatively easy fight, and defeating them gives you an access to a treasure chest containing some strong rewards. If you're carrying keys and you know where the relevant locked rooms are located, also visit those when whenever you're nearby. You should also look for treasure chests around the map, particularly the ones located in high value areas. Tasks are another good priority because completing them will always reward you with a treasure chest at the end. After that, you have the elite enemies marked on the map. These can provide excellent loot, but they're considerably harder to kill, and fighting them creates a greater risk of being pushed by another player. Speaking of player, winning 1 or 2 PvP fights a game will normally fill most of your inventory. I'd say the sweet spot is winning 1 PvP encounter. That's usually enough to provide plenty of loot and some ranked points without exposing yourself to the additional risk of hunting every player in the lobby. Of course, if you're a hard PvP player and you just want to PvP, then by all means, keep searching for players and keep killing them. But if you're like more mixed or more PvE, usually 1 good PvP encounter will be pretty good. Finally, you have Miss Lords. If you're confident that you can complete the hardest content in the raid and that you can still defend yourself if another player pushes you, then you can take on the ultimate challenge. So, in rough order from the least dangerous to the most dangerous, your priorities should be purple tag the enemies, key rooms, treasure chests in hotspots, tasks, elite enemies, PvP, and then Miss Lords. This not only is least to most dangerous, but also the least to most loot, generally speaking. Now, to close out the video, let's rapidly cover a few smaller tips. These little dots on your skills indicate that you've invested talent points that directly improve that ability. If you see a dot on a skill you are not currently using, there's a good chance your talent tree isn't set up correctly and those points are being wasted. If you see a large amount of loot on the ground, don't aim at every item individually to decide what you want. Instead, just press tab, and at the top left corner of your screen it will show you all the nearby loot. From there you can quickly select exactly individually to decide what you want. Instead, just press tab, and at the top left corner of your screen it will show you all the nearby loot. From there you can quickly select exactly what you want to pick up. And finally, there are a few settings I strongly recommend changing. Turn off smooth camera. This setting adds mouse smoothing, which can harm your aim on ranged characters and make precise targeting more difficult in general. Turn on auto close inventory when taking damage. This is disabled by default for some reason, but the last thing you want is to remain stuck in the looting screen while an enemy is attacking you. Turn on show equipment comparison. This is going to allow you to immediately see how each item you're inspecting compares to the items you have equipped. Also, while an enemy is attacking you. Turn on show equipment comparison. This is going to allow you all the nearby loot. From there you can quickly select exactly what you want to pick up. And finally, there are a few settings I strongly recommend changing. Turn off smooth camera. This setting adds mouse smoothing, which can harm your aim on ranged characters and make precise targeting more difficult in general. Turn on auto close inventory when taking damage. This is disabled by default for some reason, but the last thing you want is to remain stuck in the looting screen while an enemy is attacking you. Turn on show equipment comparison. This is going to allow you to immediately see how each item you're inspecting compares to the items you have equipped. Most importantly though, turn off client-side damage and hit prediction. These settings make your computer predict whether an attack landed before receiving confirmation from the game server. When that prediction is wrong, the server has to correct what your computer originally displayed, which can create misleading hit feedback, visible desync, and even a small amount of rubber banding as your game adjusts to what actually happened in the server. That's basically the simplified explanation, but those settings can make your game feel way less responsive rather than more responsive. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, man. I appreciate you guys being here, and I'll be catching you legends on the next one.
Today is a video request. I actually been covering a lot of Mistfall Hunter, playing a lot of Mistfall Hunter, and having a blast with it as well. Losing loot, gaining loot, and just having great, glorious combat all the way. But the topic today is about combat, because I've had a lot of people, surprisingly, which I'm encouraged by, say that they are not typically action game fans. They actually don't really play Souls-like games, action-adventure games, or just arcade-style action games in general, and so they don't have a repertoire or a backlog of experience in action games. And they asked me, hey, can you go over the basics of combat, and maybe even intermediate combat, the systems in the game, and just how to go about combat? Because I'm having trouble facing against enemy players and winning 1v1s or 2v2s or even group battles, because I just don't have that backlog. So today, we're going to dive through, one, all of the mechanics that are unique to Mistfall Hunter that you have to know about in order to succeed, and also just some tips and tricks from people that have been playing action games their whole lives that you might be able to catch up with so that you can enjoy the combat as well. And as always, if you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live on twitch.tv/Driver. So the first thing to know about that is fundamental to Mistfall Hunter is the breakaway system. You have to know how this system works and also restructure your brain around it as well. Because sometimes I see a lot of people attacking, and then all of a sudden you have the thing, the tables turned on you because you're not actually paying attention to how the overall system works for dodging as well as the breakaway system. So first, let's delineate the breakaway system, because this is everything to this game. This game is built on a system of interrupting other players by dealing damage, and so because that is the case, they implemented the breakaway system. The breakaway system is based on 2 hits. The general rule is that you cannot get hit more than 2 times in a row without being able to break out of it. That's why it's called a breakaway. So next to your character, every time you do your dash, and the hash marks here and the mechanics of a dodge is different for every class that you play. They all have their own animations and restrictions and things like that. But every time you dodge, one of your little segments will vanish and then slowly recover as you go along. But when you take your first interruption, you will get a dash icon that will have a different effect based on the class you're playing. So you see here I'm moving along. I will get attacked by someone. So you see there, it got that little icon there. This will give you the chance to be able to dash out of that. This even works on knockdowns as well. If you get knocked down or knocked back, or even just like laid out on your back, you'll be able to dash out. And you want to know about this system firstly, so that when you're attacking enemies, you know that if you land 1 hit, you're basically guaranteed the follow-up hit if it happens quick enough. And also, if you knock someone down, when they get this little icon here, they'll get a slightly faster dodge, which means that if you knock someone down with a skill, you may want to have to wait for them to dash out of it. Because most players, if they're inexperienced and they don't know what they're going up against, as soon as they get knocked down, they'll be spamming the dodge key. And so you, as an evolved, experienced player, can knock them down, wind up an attack, wait for them to dash out of the down state, and then hit them as they come out of it, knowing that they have this partial hit here. The next stage is going to be going into the breakaway. So we just got hit once, which means we got staggered, but if we get hit again, it's going to trigger the breakaway. So watch this here. We're going to be chased by these enemy team here. So there's 1 hit, it goes with the dash icon. Then we're going to hit a second time, right? And there's the second hit, and then it triggers the breakaway. When the breakaway happens, your dash bar will glow gold, and you will be able to hit the dodge button and dash immediately. It will give you iframes, you can break out of it, and you can get that distance. And so a lot of this back and forth combat is based on that mechanic, so that when you hit the breakaway state, you can get out of it and get moving. But there's a bunch of details about how this system works that you want to store away in your noggin to better utilize it. Firstly, it has to be 2 consecutive hits inside of a small window. So if you get hit and then some time passes, then you get hit again, it might go back into that state, and you can tell by that little man dash icon that comes from it as well. The other thing is that normally when you dash, you do get iframes. This is a action game staple known as invulnerability frames, and it just means that you can't take damage when you're in the animation of the dodge. You can use this to avoid projectiles, explosions, abilities, big swings, and timing it properly is crucial for you winning the combat, and when breakaway is no different. So if you break away out of a second hit, you'll be able to lose your iframes. But what's cool about the breakaway too is not only does it give you iframes, but it also gives you no collision. This helps you from being body blocked in a corner as well, and sometimes if you really backed yourself into a corner, you might have to use the breakaway to dash through an enemy and escape that corner. You can also use it to go through enemies like large bosses and elites, using that iframe as well as no collision to move through it and escape. So like right here, he's able to use that to get out of that and get out of the distance. Some classes have no collision built on their dash as well, and that can be part of it too, but also you just want to be aware of that. The next thing about the breakaway system that I don't really see anyone talking about is that it is built on a high octane reward system. What I mean by that is your breakaway will go on a short cooldown. This means that if you're constantly getting slammed, you're not gonna be able to use it over and over and over. But the breakaway itself, the cooldown gets lowered when you take damage and when you deal damage. This is a big part of the combat. The combat rewards you for being aggressive. Now, there's some classes like the Sorcerer or even the Seer that might play this touch and go playstyle, and they have abilities to control space and knock people back. But for the most part, you do want to keep up the tempo and fight back, because when you trigger a breakaway and get yourself out of a tough bind, it will help you if you're dealing damage to the enemy, so that the next time it happens, you can lower that cooldown and keep the pace going. So one of the things you learn as you try to move through this game and get better is learning to be aggressive in most cases, unless your build calls for something slightly different. And to the same token, you want to understand the iframes that you get from dodging, but also the interruption that you get from basic hits. It's something that I see a lot of new players not grasp initially as well, is that any source of damage in the game triggers what's called a mini stun, which is a small mini stagger. It causes you to recoil. This is very important against classes that are playing from a range. So say you're playing an up-close class like a mercenary or a withered knight or even a shadow strix. If you're going up against a class that has chanting like a sorcerer or a seer, or a class that has bold, like pull back attacks like the black arrow, if you're not utilizing your small sources of damage, you can actually lose out on a lot of opportunities to attack a target. Namely, even if you do a minor amount of damage to a target, if they didn't get their ability off, it will be a full interrupt and will knock them. In some cases, you can even trigger a cooldown without the effect going off at all. So being able to tactfully put out a specific hit, a little mini stagger, a mini stun on a target that prevents them from interacting, especially if they don't have any armor that protects them against it, you can actually stop people in their tracks or interrupt long chains of attacks, which is really useful against characters that have long chains, like the Shadow Strix specifically. So timing, like especially when they do a flurry, right as they finish a downswing, you hit them with a quick slash or an ability, or even like a ranged attack to stop them in their tracks. Using that stagger is crucial. But the stagger system that you'd see from a Souls-like game or an action-adventure game is built into the enemies as well. If you're fighting NPC enemies, know that they do have a hidden stagger meter that you can actually, if you deal enough stagger damage to them, it'll cause them to fall back and kneel. This works for normal enemies, elite enemies, and in some cases even bosses as well. So if you're up against an NPC or a PvE enemy, just know that you do get the opportunity to deal enough stagger damage to them and knock them down on their back. And this is great for elite enemies and bosses, where you can even open up damage windows by being aggressive enough. So that's a big tip for new players, is learn to be aggressive, even if it feels uncomfortable at first, as the game does reward you for doing so. Next, I want to talk about turning and angling. This is something you see a lot in more like fighting games and three-dimensional fighting games, being able to do rotations, curving, swinging, and especially in MMOs as well, like action MMOs, being able to guide your turn and then quick turn on things is a big part of melee builds specifically. So even like heavy things like the hammer or the greatsword for the withered knight, this is a big part of it. And I think it's important to not only understand how this works, but also for your own self of dealing damage to enemies, but also for countering. Because if you face someone who can't turn and quick turn properly, it's going to feel really easy. But if you face a really good merc with a hammer or a really good withered knight with a greatsword, you might be shocked by how much they can turn around. I've even faced some Shadow Strixes that are so good at turning properly that if you think, okay, I'm definitely not going to get by that, and you absolutely do. So the first thing you want to know about is that when you're doing like some of these crazy attacks, like you're winding up and doing some of these, you can like turn like that. So you see that? If you time it right based on when you're doing the dash, or you're doing a heavy attack, or if you're doing an attack chain as well. This is true for Shadow Strix especially, where you can turn this and turn. You'll notice that kind of like turn here, where like as I do this and I turn, I can do like a 180 as I'm moving around. controlling your turn and your curves is a big part of melee and also defeating melee. So being able to do that as well. Now, there's a couple things to know about on the settings side of this. Firstly, when you go into the settings options to turn properly, what you're gonna wanna do is go into the control settings. This is true on PC and console as well, as there is inside the keyboard options here, or just on the general settings for this, there is an option for smoothing the camera. This is something that you see a lot in kind of high fidelity single player games, as it smooths things out and makes it less kind of jumpy and jaggedy. But it's a PvP game, and having that smooth camera is a disadvantage in PvP, because someone who doesn't have smooth camera on can do things where they can actually turn crazy amounts, they can do like this. Without camera smoothing, that's way easier to do, and with it on, it's way harder to do. So what I would recommend doing is, anytime, if you're serious about PvP, turn off the smooth camera. It will allow you to do some crazy camera business, which is super useful. And the second part is, if you're on controller, there is actually a quick turn option that will allow you to flip around. So I just plugged into my controller, and you can see I'm moving here on the controller. I got this going on with this. If you're playing on controller, there is a system that allows you to do this even easier if you just want to play on controller in general. So if you go to the controller settings in the game, there is actually a quick turn option. So you have to turn it on here. So what this does is, if you flick the right stick twice diagonally, it will do a rapid rotation. This is very common for action adventure, or even survival horror games like a Resident Evil, where you move kind of slow, like Leon Kennedy's kind of trucking along, and you want to turn around to face the enemy that's chasing you. It allows you to quick turn. So on controller, you can actually turn this on to do this. So I'm on my controller here, and if I do a downward angle twice, it will flip the camera around. So if you feel like you have a hard time, if you're kind of holding down this and you're trying to do this and you're having trouble doing this on controller, you can use the quick turn option to flip around. And this is actually really useful, again, for multi-hit chain characters like the Shadow Strix. You can go boom, boom, quick turn, flips the camera, and then he'll flip the character. So you see how that worked? You can go boom, boom, quick turn, and then hit the last hit, and your character will actually smooth into that, which allows you to do that. So again, as we just talked about with dodges and iframes, you're gonna have a lot of people that dash through you using their no collision to get behind you. If that happens, you can use the quick turn on controller to flip around and catch them with a whip around attack, especially if you have a multi-stage sequence. Next, I want to talk about super armor and hyper armor. It's an important setting for your game, and also based on what you're playing, you need to know about it in general. So in fighting games, there's super armor, hyper armor, negative, positive frames on recovery and being able to avoid things as well, or just interruption, resistance, or protection in a lot of action games. Then basically what that means is that you can avoid either small mini stuns, small mini staggers, or CCs and things like that. So hyper armor, super armor are crucial for games like this, and it shows up as a golden glow on your character, and there's two stages to it. When you have a normal stage, you'll have that golden glow. So when you have that golden glow, we talked earlier about being able to do mini staggers, mini stuns on people to interrupt them. If they have that golden glow on them, they will be immune to the lowest level of interruption. So if you see me doing that, like if I gold glow and you're looking for that interruption, if you hit me while I'm glowing, it won't work. There's a small asterisk here. Characters like Shadow Strix have talents that they can talent into that allow them to go through it anyway. I hope they get rid of that because I think it's kind of wonky and weird. But in general, as a global rule, if you see them glowing gold like that, it means that you can't interrupt them, but you should be able to give them a hard CC. So if your class has a major stun or something like that, that should still go through. But there is a level above that, which is like hyper armor, which means that you're immune to basically everything, which not many classes have this. Mercenary is the most common one, that's why I'm showing it here. But you'll notice that if I do this supercharge and I let go as we're going, you see how my whole body is turning into this golden mineral, I'm turning into a hard stone. That's the hyper armor. And so if you see a character that's glowing like this, there's not really anything you can do to stop them. Now, obviously, while I'm charging this up, then you can interrupt me or prevent me from doing it. But that's when you're going to use your iframes, wait for them to get close, dash through them to avoid that using your collision resistance. But again, this is where that kind of flurry comes in. If you dash through them, but they know how to turn around, they can catch you. So that's part of like the back and forth between players, is being able to react to that and deal damage that way. The thing I want to mention briefly as well is there's a difference between normal attacks and critical hits. If you're brand new to action games like this, you see when I deal damage here, it's usually a white number. If you do a critical hit, which Shadow Strixes do a lot, or you do headshots, which Black Arrows, Seers, and Sorcerers can do, it will give you a red number. And you want that because not only does it give you, I believe, a little bit higher stagger number, it also gives you a massive increase to your damage output as well. So you can kind of think of this as you're playing against ranged characters as a defensive option, but you'll notice that when you get those red numbers, you get more damage, more efficacy. Be aware of those, and also keep in mind that some classes, like the Shadow Strix, can also get benefits when they critically strike. So when they get a critical strike, they might be stronger for a period of time, for example. Next, I want to talk about healing in combat, because this is a big thing that you learn as you get better at PvP games and action PvP games in general, is learning how to manage your healing using your resources, and you have several to choose from as you play the game. The most important one is going to be your built-in horn. So next to your health bar to the left, you see that R key on PC. You get 3 of these per match, and unlike most consumables, it is an instantaneous heal. So it's one of your best, if not your best, combat heals. So it takes like a second and a half, 2 seconds to finish drinking it, but this is one of your best combats. So what you'll do is you'll round a corner, hide in a pocket, pull it out, and then start drinking it, and you'll notice, boom, you get this big chunk of health. It's instantaneous, and you can turn the tides on someone very quickly by utilizing it. So even, I mean, some people even do it right in your face. You can just go for hit, go deal damage to them that way. But you do want to utilize this because it's one of your best heals. It's just limited per match, so you want to use that there. The other option, one which is a little less straightforward, is your consumables. Most of the consumables in the game, the ones that are infinite that you just bring with you as a collectible item inside the match, those are heal over time, but they have some restrictions on how they're utilized. First of all, you can't stack them. So if you drink one of your elixirs that has that heal over time, you can't drink another one and get more benefit out of it. Let that one run its course and then add another one on top of it. And secondly, there are effects that will completely cancel it out, prevent you from healing at all, or remove the healer over time effect. So generally, unlike the horn or like the seer heal, you want to do these when you are safe and not taking damage, or even if you pop it, maybe you want to buy some time in the fight by hiding behind walls or avoiding shots so that you can prevent yourself from losing that benefit and let it tick up. So like right here, you can see some of these characters end up doing things where they'll just run around, buy time, because they're letting that recovery go through to keep their health up that way. And conversely, if you know someone just drank a consumable that wasn't their horn or a seer heal, you may want to pick up the pressure and push it on them so you can prevent them from recovering from that heal over time as well. Next, I want to touch on tactical items. I feel like these are super underutilized by pretty much everyone in the game, myself included. Some of these are incredibly powerful, and also some of these can really trip you up. So one of the best in the game, I think, is the Spellbound Key. This is one of the best consumable items, the tactical items that you could ever have. And what's great about this is you use the item, you wind it up like a consumable, you chant it, and then you throw it. But if it collides with an interactable object, it will instantly finish that object, which most notably can be pulling the lever for an elevator or opening a door. Something that you'll have happen when you're chasing someone in combat is they'll close a door behind them and try to get away. But if you know they're going to do that, bringing one of these is clutch, because then you can, as they're kind of tinkering with the door and you feel like you're not going to make it in time, the door closes, you can wind up the Spellbound Key, throw it at the closed door, and it will instantly open, allowing you to keep that gap and chase after the player in real time. Next time the door closes, you can wind up the Spellbound Key, throw it at the closed door, and it will instantly open, allowing you to keep that gap and chase after the player in real time. Next is the Silence Dust, and this one will throw you for a loop if you don't know that it exists, and some people don't as they're going around the world. So Silence Dust is a consumable that allows you to speed up your interaction time, and also means that your interactions provide no sound, and while you're crouching, you make no sound. So there's a lot of times where you might be walking around, you hear a player, and then all of a sudden they vanish, and you're like, okay, where did they go? They were here just a second ago. They could have popped a Silence Dust and then crouched away, and then you lost complete track of them. So these are really good. There's a couple others that are quite useful. Things like luring enemies to you, or revealing enemies and stuff like that can be useful. Those are rather niche, but I think the ones that are most important are the Key and the Silence Dust, specifically for PvP and general combat. And on that note, I want to make sure that people know, if you're brand new to combat in this game, all player sounds are higher in value in the sound mix, which means that an enemy, an NPC, a PV enemy, or a monster will always be quieter and lower in volume than a player. And so if you hear someone like a professional upstairs neighbor clonking around, it is always a player that is nearby, and it makes it very clear to you once you know what to listen for that there's a player nearby. So I recommend, you know, listening and training your ears to pick up on that because it's very crucial. The other thing worth noting is that when anyone is stealth near you, it'll create a heartbeat sound that you can hear, and the heart rate speeds up whether they're closer to you or further away. So I'm playing this clip of an enemy player, not only the heartbeat sound for stealth, but also the footstep sound, and you can tell the difference in how loud it is, so that at least you're aware of what that sounds like. So note the clonking around. Again, I call it the professional upstairs neighbor, but basically they're just like, it's kind of comical how much louder player footsteps are to normal gameplay. I think a lot of people that do games like these are used to listening for that, but if you're brand new, since this is a beginner's guide to combat, I wanted to highlight that, and also the heartbeat. So if you hear that heartbeat, know that either a sorcerer that's in Viz is nearby, or a Shadow Strix that's in stealth is nearby, and their proximity to you speeds up or slows down the heart rate. So if it's going really crazy, you know, they're within striking distance, and if it's really slow, they're kind of in the room, but maybe not as close to you, so just pay attention to that. And that's what I've got for you today. This was just a request for people saying, hey, I don't play a lot of these games, can you talk about it? Hopefully this was helpful for you and wasn't too simple for the people that have played these kind of games before, and let me know if there's other guides or content that you want me to cover in the future down below in the comments.
If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.
Mistfall Hunter is out. I've already done a beginner's guide on the game, so if you're curious about the mechanics and how it's played, you'll find that on my channel as well. But today I wanted to cover which class you should play, because you have individual characters that you level up, but also it's a very skill-based game. So a lot of these games, people tend to pick a class or two and specialize, learn everything you need to learn. There's a lot of different ways to counter other classes, animations you have to learn, and all the things that you can play around with the skills and talent. So today, I want to dive in deeper with all of the 6 classes, talk about the current meta as it's evolving. Of course, that could change over time, and just talk about what they're good at, what they're bad at, and what their play style allows for, so you can understand what it is that you're going for. And of course, if you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live on twitch.tv/Drybear. So I've actually been playing through a lot of the Mistfall Hunter betas, even when they back only had 3 classes, and they've slowly been adding more and more up to the full release where they added the Withered Knight. So we're gonna go through all of the classes. We're gonna talk about their animations, their pros and cons, their different builds that might work with what they're playing with, and just kind of give you a high-level overview. I'm not going to tell you the best build for every single one of them, because I think that is still emergent gameplay as we're figuring out what works or doesn't work. But my goal is that when you leave this video, you have a better understanding of what the classes do, what they excel at, and also what their weaknesses are, so you can counter them easier, but also figure out what your main is going to be if that's your sort of thing. Let's start with the Mercenary, your quintessential fighter. If you've never played this class before, they can utilize 2 different weapons, the hammer or the sword and shield. And unlike some of the classes in the game, they can use both at once. You have the ability to equip both weapons, and you can swap between them and use them as you like. There's some classes like Sorcerer or Seer that can't do that, or even Black Arrow that only has 1 weapon, but Mercenary has the ability to use both, or they can specialize in one or the other. There's nothing forcing you to you know, switch between them if you want to only use the hammer or only use the sword and shield. Now, the mercenary is a little bit faster than the withered knight. The withered knight is kind of heavy, but has some really good ways to play around it. However, if you're playing the hammer playstyle, it is incredibly slow. I would say it is slower than the greatsword or the polearm for the withered knight. However, it has a lot of super armor and resistance built into its kit. It hits incredibly hard and has some good stagger and knockups slash knockdowns inside of its kit as well. So if you want to play the hammer playstyle or switch it out when you need to, this weapon is very easy to get interrupted if you're not paying attention. Some of the easy counters for this are going to be shadow strix that have fast moving strikes that will interrupt you as you're going along, but it also gives you the opportunity to get some really heavy hits on enemy players. One of the cool things about the hammer as well is you do have charge ups that allow you to move quickly, and as you can see in this clip, I was soloing a boss on my sorcerer, and there was a super geared mercenary that came in with a big hammer and just bonk. So look at the damage. If you're good at controlling space and you're good at kind of positioning yourself properly, you can get some heavy hits on targets and also move through some basic and like AoEs or slows or stuns that can move through it. But again, it's very methodical and you have to be careful about your pacing. Now, a couple things about the hammer playstyle for the mercenary that you need to understand. First of all, there is a super arm mechanic in the game which allows you to avoid interruption. And there's also a level higher than that that avoids CC as well. You even saw it in that clip where I lost the mercenary on my sorcerer, where he dashed through my tornado and struck me down. You're going to be playing with this dramatically, but keep in mind there are some classes like the Shadow Strix that can still go through super armor, so it's a little finicky, and you'll learn that with basic on matchups. However, you'll notice again with the hammer, it's incredibly slow. So what you want to do is use the range that the hammer has and time your strikes perfectly, especially based on what enemy you're going with. But you could also use the super armor to move through vulnerable attacks that allow you to punish the enemy. One of the best ones is your heavy attack here. When you hold this, you'll actually go, and as you go forward, you turn on this gold hit. You can move that distance to break the gap and wait for people to space. You can even wait, like try and go and zone someone out, wait until they dash to avoid the iframes, and as soon as they do, then you hit them with a forward attack to knock them back. However, keep in mind, this is going to come up a lot with a lot of these classes. There is a limit of 2 hits in basic combat before the breakaway mechanic is made available. You'll see it on the enemy, so as I hit and hit, you see that yellow icon above their name. That means that they can instantly break out of whatever damage you're doing. So I wouldn't get greedy with this hammer. Try to do 1 or 2 hits at a time, knock them down, create space, empty that space by moving forward, use your super armor to move through, and play around the breakaway as part of that mechanic. The other option is going to be the sword and shield, and this one is a momentum play style. It's about building up momentum and consuming that momentum. Now, because it does have a shield, like the polearm build for the Withered Knight, you have the option to block and avoid things. It doesn't have the Withered Knight parry like you have on Greatsword, but you can actually block some attacks, avoid some attacks. You will still get CC'd if others hit you, but you want to play with that range, and it's super fast. This is kind of your quintessential fighter, like D&D style fighter, very well-rounded, built on top of it. But kind of like the Shadow Strix, because you're momentum based, you want to keep up the tempo, because the core mechanic for the mercenary on the sword and shield is utilizing the sword tip. So the core mechanic for the sword and shield, you'll see it on the buff bar right above my HP.
I'll like maybe 201 stuff from the build, but I have all purple. I didn't want to use it.
No,
actually, I haven't used it even once because it's just useless. I'm waiting for some kind of.
Use purple in normal mod. Blue is the highest.
I only can use it on chaos. On chaos.
Yeah, and or brand, the second one, the second map. You can use it too.
Okay, I'm ready. You invited a tank?
Yeah. I hope he has a hammer. Maybe not shield, but maybe shield is good too. I don't know.
I'm going with the green and white right now.
Yeah, me too. I just put the higher gear when we really have a good team. Okay, I'm sorry, but
Good luck. Stay sharp. The woodlands have already slipped in. The mid-roll shows itself. Miss this chance and you'll regret it. Here's your reward. Something's off. You'd better plan your escape route soon. catch the scent of a woodling nearby. I catch the scent of a woodling nearby. Don't get too comfortable, Guild Hunter. The Gilden Mist is coming for you. The mist is catching up. Don't stop if you want to live. Back pretty quick, King of Scavengers. I'm not repeating. In the Age of the Stars, to maintain the so-called world order, that one standing motionless in our camp is the goddess of fate. She weaves the web of fate using Yggdrasil's roots and new branches, constantly spinning thread with her head down, just like the spider in your tent. Velvar barely speaks, terrified of revealing the future. Later, I became her messenger, specifically, but because she hadn't spoken for so long, she couldn't manage Forge. Girl with wreath of flowers. Yet, strangely enough, these incomprehensible... Maybe that's the thing with humans. After that... Well, I'm sure... Actually, the origins of the Woodling clan are even more obscure than the goddess's story. Their tale... If I were you, I'd use this story to trade for some of the Woodling clan's secrets.
Shiny Guild Hunter! Okay, not many know the truth about us Woodlings, so you need to prove your... Last time the scavenger squad went adventuring, we found a... But when we were almost at Hollow Grove, he charged at us like crazy and almost... We had to leave some shinies behind and keep going to Hollow Grove with the rest. But just as we were leaving Hollow Grove, he showed up again. It was a fierce battle, but Twig came out on top. He begged for mercy then took us by surprise and attacked us. In the end, kind-hearted Guild Hunter, if you go to Hollow Grove and Brandergard to find our lost treasures, I'll...
Good day, Guild Hunter. How have you... As the apocalypse drags on, don't be surprised. I know that too many of the reasons. I need someone to recon.
managing sword and shield for mercenary. So as I see a hit, you see that hit there? You see that sword icon? That's one stack of sword tip, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and it turns blue. Now we have a sword tip strike. However, there are builds inside of the talent tree and skill tree that allow you to go even higher than the first stage. You can actually build up more and more and more, and you can keep getting more and more, and then you can build up higher and higher and eventually get higher skills. So an important thing about this, you'll notice now my sword is glowing a more bigger red and the buff is there. You spend this based on right behind my head. You see the left click and right click icon. You spend this by pushing those together, and that's where your big damage comes from. I've seen a lot of people play mercenary sword and shield and not play off this sword tip mechanic. But you'll also probably have already realized that these buffs and stacks have timers on them. So if you're playing really safe and playing really far back and you lose your stacks of sword tip, you're losing a major part of your kit and a huge, probably the largest portion of your individual damage by not keeping that momentum going. Now, luckily you have tons of ways to play around with this using your shield slams, your blocks. You can right click to block ranged attacks and things like that. But you want to get close to the enemy, keep up with the enemy, and keep moving and invading their space so you're trading blows with them. But most importantly, you're building up your sword tip. Now, there are abilities and talents you can pick up with this that allow you to build sword tip faster, but you want to be playing around with this as much as you can if you want to get the most out of sword and shield for mercenary. Next up is the sorcerer, and the sorcerer is a completely different playstyle than pretty much everything in the game. It is a spell caster. In this game, spells use energy, which is your stamina bar, and you'll use that instead of MP. There's no mana pool, there's no MP pool. You are just utilizing your energy to do it. Now, generally at the highest level, you're probably going to want to bring energy potions and consumables, because if you're casting a lot of spells and then you're dodging and avoiding attacks and being pushed into a corner, you will need to replenish that in some dire situations, but it's all based around casting those spells and utilizing them, and also being able to create space for you. In a reverse mentality than you would with the mercenary, you are being very tricky, very tricksy, and being kind of playful with how you play, trying to get those big strikes on the hit. Now, I would recommend, if you're going for like solo play, you have two different options to play with the sorcerer, either the Stardust magic or the elemental magic. I think the elemental magic is a lot more reasonable because it's faster. You're less likely to be interrupted and that sort of thing. Keep in mind that any projectile has the ability to headshot, so if you're running with like Firebolt as your basic attack, for a sorcerer, aim for the head as much as you can and kind of play around with it, though it does have a small explosion radius, so you can also use that to damage enemies as well. And if you're wondering how to switch between the elemental types, if you go to Skills tab on your sorcerer, you get this button here and it swaps between either Stardust magic or elemental magic. You cannot have both. There are shared skills that you can have here, like stealth or creating walls and stuff like that, but you have to choose either elemental or Stardust. But let me show you the difference between these spells here. This is going to be a normal spell for elemental magic, so you can see that comes out almost instantaneously. You have the ability to build it up and deal damage that way. Even a lot of their basic spells, like the Flame Sword is really strong. You can have like the knockback and things like that. You have a lot of different ways to do some really fast spells. There are some rather slow ones here, but even that compared to Stardust is rather quick. Compare that to the Stardust speed, which looks like this. It is, in a lot of cases, 2 times or 3 times slower. The spell casts are really long, but you'll notice right away, even with the same gear, the damage is significantly higher. So it's high risk, high reward.
barrier has been lifted. You'll face the message. Hurry up and ring it. Take your junk out of here. Go make it count.
Worthy of a true guild hunter.
final warning. If you want to live, find an extraction point. Those shiny butterflies? Follow them.
Seek your remains. Return to the living world. A soul cannot wander alone for too long. Reclaim your body as soon as possible.